How is our favorite patient still determined to make his short life even shorter?
Yes, I am. Anyway, you're one to talk. You look terrible. Look at the state of you.
Says the man wearing, what is that, a quilt?
Oh, sorry. I didn't get the memo to dress for a funeral.
Hi.
Hi.
I have something I want to talk about. Well, this is something I wanted to talk about back in October during spooky season, but obviously I didn't get around to that. I was having trouble with my monster video, and I just didn't get around to doing Morbius. So I want to talk about Morbius, but not like how I've talked about other things. I don't really want to do a full recap. And do I analyze things? Maybe. Is analyze a word? I don't know. But it's not really that. It's more like my opinion. I guess everything I've done is my opinion. I don't know what to call it, whatever. But the point is, I have a very strong opinion on this, and when I saw Morbius on Netflix, like in October, I was like, oh my gosh, and it brought back all these memories of 2022 because I went to see this in theaters for some reason, because it's not that great of a movie, as I think everybody knows. However, it could have been a great movie if it was a BL. Now, obviously, I really enjoy BLs. I have for a very, very long time. Don't want to age myself, I'm getting old. But, so it just might be a little bit of my bias for BLs and fruity relationships. But also, I genuinely do think that the movie would have been better if the characters were fruity. That's just a fact. I don't make the rules. That being said, I'm gonna tell you how I believe Morbius could have been better if it was a BL. But first, before I really dive into that, I feel like we do have to sort of recap it so that you understand what I'm getting at. Because the movie truly did have the potential to be fruity, and they just didn't go full throttle with it, which is such a disappointment because it's a missed opportunity for real. Let's get into it. Let's start with a brief-ish recap. So, the movie starts off in Costa Rica, where Dr. Michael Morbius is there to collect vampire bats for experimental research purposes. After a quick title card, we pick up 25 years in the past in Greece, and that is where we meet a young Michael Morbius, and he's in this live-in facility for sick children. And that's where he meets his soon-to-be best friend, Lucien, who he nicknames Milo. Lots of M names in this movie, by the way. And these two, I guess they have the same illness. I don't know what that disease is because I don't think they say what disease these two have. And basically, their illness has something to do with a missing part of their DNA. Because of that, they basically have to, as Michael puts it, get an oil change 3 times a day to survive. So it has to do with their blood. It's some sort of blood disease. And I don't know if they're on dialysis or some other sort of treatment, but it makes it hard for them to walk. The pain is excruciating. It seems like it's a little bit the take on this disease may be from the real blood disorder, sickle cell anemia. That's sort of what the symptoms seem similar to. Anyway, So one day while the boys are in bed getting their treatment, Milo's like machine sort of like stops working, it's beeping, the nurses are not fast enough to get there, so Michael takes the reins and he pops open the machine, uses like the spring from a ballpoint pen to fix it. So the head doctor of the facility like finds this extremely impressive, and he's like, you know, Michael, you're a very smart kid. There is a school in New York where it's for gifted children like you, and you could really like hone your skills there. Like, I think you should go. And Morbius is like, you know what? Yeah, like I should go, because his goal is to find a cure for the disease that him and Milo have. Then we cut to present day, where we learn a bit more about gifted Michael Morbius, and we learn that he completed his doctorate by the time he was 19 years old, and he is the leading renowned specialist on blood-borne diseases. And he even developed an artificial blood that is able to save many lives, more lives than penicillin, apparently. So thus he is being rewarded a prize by the King of Sweden, which he rejects. He rejects this prize. He rejects this prize because he feels that he doesn't deserve a prize for a failed experiment. So basically, the good that he's done was an accident. Basically made something that is great for the world, but was not his goal. So this is where the bats that he collected in Costa Rica come back into play. These vampire bats have, because they feed exclusively on blood, they have this kind of saliva that has some sort of anticoagulant in it. And so he believes that if he can, you know, successfully splice the DNA with his own, he will be able to have the same anticoagulants running through his system, thus curing the blood disease that he has. Now, this is one, extremely experimental, because mixing human DNA and animal DNA, I mean, if you've ever watched a movie or read a comic book, you know that that stuff normally doesn't go well. And it's also illegal. Like, mixing human DNA with any other kind of DNA is typically illegal. You know what I'm saying? So this is all very under the table hush hush. However, he is willing to risk his license and, you know, his integrity in the scientific community by, you know, trying this out in the hopes of saving himself and his best friend, Milo, who we now get to see him with in present day as adults. And so he goes to visit Milo, and they have fantastic banter right off the bat. They're very funny together. You know, you can tell they definitely give old friend vibes. And we find out that Milo is Morbius's like benefactor or whatever. Like, he's basically providing the funding for all these experiments and stuff, which makes sense. I mean, they are to help him as well. And Morbius is like, look, I think I kind of have a breakthrough here, but because it's an illegal breakthrough, so to speak, we need to do this in international waters, so I'm gonna need some ka-ching for that, you know what I'm saying? And Milo, being the supportive friend that he is like, I will give you anything you want and need. So he sends him off on a boat in the middle of the ocean in international waters so that he can perform the experiment on himself. And this experiment ultimately works, turning him into a vampire. Now, things are not all fine and dandy as you may think. Yes, his blood disease is cured and he's stronger and healthier than he's literally ever been in his life. However, he did kill a whole bunch of people on that boat, which drew a lot of attention, of course, from everybody. But that is not really what he's concerned about. Now he's concerned about how he's supposed to control his new abilities and powers and strength. So Morbius goes home, locks himself in his laboratory, and starts doing testing on himself. How long can he go without blood? Is the artificial blood enough, or does he need to substitute it for human blood? He has new senses like supersonic hearing and things like that, you know what I'm saying? So he's trying to hone his skills. But of course, everybody has seen this news, and Milo is very much scared for his friend. So he goes to his lab looking for him, and he finds him. And, he's kind of in awe. He's like, oh my god, like, you did it. You cured our disease. Like, give me the cure right now, because I can't live like this anymore. But, of course, Michael is like, no, it's not what you think. Like, yes, I cured it, but it's not the cure I was hoping for. Like, I have this insane bloodlust. I'm a monster now. I can't control it. Like, and Milo is like, I'm really not seeing the downsides here. Like, I get it. You killed some people. It was a oopsie. We can deal with that. But, like, you're cured. You're healthy. You're strong. Like, I want that too. And, Morbius, Michael, whatever you want to call him, he refuses. He's like, no, I'm not giving you the cure, Milo, because it's not a cure. Like, I need to figure out how to cure the cure now. So I don't want you to suffer this like how I'm suffering right now. So obviously, because of the boat situation in international waters and a whole bunch of dead mercenaries being found on it, the police are investigating, trying to track down who did all this, and they kind of like know that it's probably Dr. Michael Morbius. But anywho, now because Michael has locked himself away in the laboratory in the hospital, in the morning, a woman is found dead. Not just a woman, a co-worker of his, a nurse. She was drained of like all her blood, and he's like, oh shit, like I thought I had this under control a little bit. And so obviously the police show up to the hospital because duh, there's a dead body in the hallway. And Morbius tries to like sneakily slip out. However, the cops catch him at the door and they take his ass to jail basically. So he's in jail, very sad about what he's done. He was already sad that he had killed all these mercenaries that have probably done much worse things, but now he killed a co-worker. A woman that he's worked with for years, a woman with a family, and he's devastated. And the cops are interrogating him like, so what is going on? Like, what is happening here? Why would you do that? Like, and he's trying to explain. He's like, look, I didn't mean to. You know what I'm saying? But they're not having it. He's still in prison. Now, Milo shows up to the jail pretending to be his lawyer, and he gives him a blood bag. He's like, look, you didn't mean to do anything. He's like, I know you. I've known you my whole life. You're a good person. And their time is cut very short because it's prison. So Milo has to leave. But Morbius notices that Milo left behind his cane. The cane that he literally needs to walk. And he forgot it. And like, then something clicks in Michael's head and he's like, this mother... Milo has taken the cure and he has become a vampire like Morbius. So Morbius obviously feels saddened and betrayed by his friend. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's pissed. So he breaks out of the prison after he drinks the blood bag, which, helps him regain his strength. He breaks out of the prison and he goes on the hunt for Milo. He's like, where is this boy? Because he's trying to figure out the thought process here. Like, you knew I was a killer. I told you the cure is not really a cure, and you still took it and disobeyed me. But honestly, it's kind of like, come on, you can understand why he would do it. Like, when you spend your whole life in pain, unable to walk, going from medical facility to medical facility, like, yeah, I would have taken it too, even with the risks. I would have taken it anyway because, like, my friend is literally a world-renowned scientist. Like, I'm sure he would be able to, buff out the kinks and, create something to counteract what he created. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so after he breaks out of the prison, he catches up to Milo and, confronts him about it. He's like, why would you take it? I told you this is not a cure, it's a curse. You know, it's just a different curse than what we were born with. And, you know, Milo then admits to accidentally killing the nurse. He said, look, you know how it was your first time. That's why you killed all those mercenaries on the ship. I killed one person. It was an accident. I didn't mean to. But, like, look, like, we're both strong. We're both healthy. Like, I've never felt better in my whole life. And, you know, then he's like, let's leave. Like, we can live our lives now. We can run away together and get out of here. And Morbius is not having it. He's like, no, this is not a cure. He's like, this is a curse and I need to fix it. I need to fix us. And Milo does not like that answer. So of course they have a fight over it because they're on opposing sides. They're very much in disagreement here. And Morbius is realizing that Milo doesn't feel so bad about killing certain people because he's been bullied his whole life. He's been the underdog his whole life. Even though clearly he's rich and has money, it's like, obviously money's not really making him all that happy. So Morbius realizes like he needs to create a cure for the cure. Like, he needs to reverse this situation as soon as possible, since Milo is getting out of hand in his opinion. He's already killed a couple of people and he sees no remorse in it. So of course, to help him with that, he recruits his friend and co-worker / right hand, Martine. Now, I haven't mentioned her yet, but she's been around. She was on the ship with him, helping him create the original cure, and now she's going to help him create the cure for the cure. Martine is obviously supposed to be his love interest. There's a vibe from both of them from the start, and it only grows in this moment of desperation as they try and make a cure for the cure. Milo ends up going back to the laboratory looking for Morbius, and he finds Martine there instead, and you can tell he is not having it. He does not like her at all. And he's not stupid. He knows what Michael's probably doing. He knows he's trying to like cure the cure and that Martine is definitely helping him. So he realizes if he wants Michael to accept who they now are, he's going to have to force him to do so. He ends up figuring, well, I gotta draw Michael out. And he does this in 2 steps. First step being he kills the doctor that was a father figure to both of them, and he kills him under the grounds of he feels that this Dr. Zaddy favored Morbius over Milo. He's like, he was always your favorite anyway, like you never really cared about me, blah blah blah, and he kills him. So obviously this draws out Michael, and Michael's devastated because again this man was kind of a father figure to them. It's very sad. He passes away, and then Milo's next step is to kidnap Martine, and he taunts him because they both have like supersonic hearing or whatever. He has her literally like on a building whispering his name just to taunt him, and then he ends up killing her, which then really sets Morbius off, and he's pissed because, you know, he just admitted his feelings for this woman even though he's known her for years. So of course, now they gotta square up. Now they gotta fight. He's looking at Milo like he is a lost cause. So they're fighting, they're battling it out, and near the end of their battle, Morbius finally gets the upper hand and administers the serum to Milo, which kind of pulls him out of his villainy for a little bit, and they have a very sad, heartfelt conversation, or exchange of words anyway, as Milo is slipping away. Milo apologizes, which then prompts Morbius to call Milo by his real name one last time, and then he passes away. And of course, because they like tore up the city, the police are closing in on them. And then we get like a end scene, and Martine is not dead. She's now also some sort of vampire creature because Morbius decided to bite her, which I guess changed her into a vampire. Very cliche. And yeah, that's the end of the movie. It was underwhelming, to say the least. Very, very underwhelming. But I'm gonna tell you how it could have been much better. Because honestly, as I was watching the movie in theaters, I was like, this kind of reads like a manhwa. For real. Like, if you read manhwa, if you read BL manhwa, like, you know what I'm talking about. It reads very manhwa-esque, and I'm like, with some tweaks and some add-ins, we could have made this into a BL, which would have made this story a lot stronger. We're gonna fix this movie and make it into a BL, which is gonna make it so much better. Okay, now I'm going to tell you what I came up with to make this into a BL. Now, for me, I feel like this story is giving unrequited love. You know what I'm saying? Like, from Milo's end. Like, Milo seems to be in love with Michael, and Michael is like that oblivious friend that's not catching up on the vibes. You know what I mean? So starting off with them living in this facility in Greece for sick kids, right? Like, we don't really get to see much of their friendship there. We see how they meet and how it starts. So my thing is, I would first show a little bit more of that. Like, you know, them pulling pranks or whatever, because they both kind of seem like funny prankster pullers, at least when they're kids. Just like something to get them to like show us that they're close. And then when Michael gets the opportunity to go to New York, like when Dr. Daddy is telling him about it, his first question is, what about Milo? Like giving like, I can't just leave him. But of course, Dr. Daddy, you know, reassures him that he will take very good care of Milo in his absence. And also in the movie, we do see that Morbius writes Milo a letter before he leaves, and he's super into origami, so he folds up the letter into origami. So when Milo unfolds it and reads the letter, it basically just says like, you know, I'm kind of doing this for us. I'm gonna find a cure for us so that we can grow old together, which I think is really cute. That does happen in the movie, okay? I didn't add that. But he also puts in the letter like, oh, you shouldn't have unfolded this letter because like now you're never gonna get it back together again. So it would have been like nice to see them write letters back and forth and stuff. And if Milo kind of took up the hobby of origami like how Michael did, just so that he could put the letters back together. Like, I think that would be really cute. And then if you show him like collecting the letters, like keeping them in a box or whatever, basically implying that these letters are precious to him. You know, if he would like wait around to get the letters, like that kind of thing. I think that'd be really cute and kind of show a stronger bond. So then when we see them in present day in New York, right, the first time we see them together is when Michael goes to basically tell Milo that like he found a cure, but he needs to administer in international waters, etc., etc. So Michael suggests that they go for a walk so that he can kind of tell him more about the cure that he created. So when they go on this walk, Milo asks about Martine. He's like, so, how's Martine? And Michael, you know, kind of boasts about her. He's like, oh, she's brilliant, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, well, why do you ask? And Milo's like, well, I haven't seen you in quite some time, so I thought, you know, maybe she was keeping you busy. So Michael denies that they're dating. Milo's kind of like, oh, good, because falling in love, there's no cure for that. He's speaking from a point of first-hand experience, you know, since he sort of has this unrequited love for his bestie. So if they like tweak that just a little bit, because he does say that in the movie, but if they like made it to where he delivered the line a little bit more like painful, I don't know how to explain that. I feel like it would have added to the whole unrequited love sort of thing, and how Michael's the oblivious friend that doesn't get that his bestie is in love with him. Anyway, so yeah, he's like, there's no cure for love, so don't fall in love. More so, don't fall in love with her is what he's implying. And then I would have changed the movie to where Milo would go to visit the lab at the hospital before they go on their little international waters trip. I would have had it to where like he shows up at the hospital and shows up at the lab and is not expecting to see Martine there. but of course she's there. And then he finds out that she's also going with Morbius on this little expedition, and like he's like a little bit jealous about that, of course. And then like sort of jokingly but also kind of serious, he would sort of ask like, oh well, like should I come too, right? But then of course Morbius would give him some excuse to not go and be like, no, you don't need to go, it could be dangerous, blah blah blah, like something like that. And then like he would just kind of sit there and feel left out because Martine and Michael are sort of talking all science-y, and like he doesn't understand what they're even talking about, so he's sort of like that third wheel. And then to like break up their conversation because he feels left out, he would be like, you know, like Michael, have dinner with me tonight before you leave for this little expedition. And so he'll invite him to dinner because they haven't had dinner in a while, and if this whole thing is as dangerous as it could be, like, we should have dinner. And so then it would like cut to Morbius and Milo having dinner together at like some bougie restaurant, and they'll be laughing and like having a good time, reminiscing on the old days. And then they'll be talking about how like when they're both cured, like what they'll do, things they might do together, the kind of lives they'll live, you know what I'm saying? Like talking future vibes, like reminiscing on their past and how that all went, and then talking about the future that they want to have together, you know what I'm saying? And it's like all good vibes until Morbius's phone rings, and it's none other than Martine, and you know, maybe she'll need him for whatever reason, so he'll have to bail on dinner in that moment. And we'll see the hurt yet again on Milo's face of his friend and unrequited love, you know, just bailing on him for this woman. Like, you really gotta like push home the idea that this is unrequited love. It has to be clear to the audience, like clear enough to the audience that Milo is not just, oh, my best friend's abandoning me. It has to be like, I'm in love with him, he has no idea, and I feel abandoned. You know what I'm saying? Like, it has to be very clear to the audience, but not clear to the people around them, so to speak. Like, Morbius should not know that Milo is in love with him. Anyways, so after Morbius comes back from international waters and he locks himself in his laboratory to try and, like, you know, figure things out, Milo will see the news along with everybody else about the dead bodies on the boat and all this, and he'll freak out thinking that, you know, his unrequited love is dead. And so he'll go looking for him, eventually ending up at the lab where he finds Morbius locked in a glass box and he gives him the blood to help him out, and is more so just relieved that he's alive, but then realizes like he's strong, he's healthy. So of course Milo is like, oh my god, the cure worked, you made a cure, I want it, you're strong, you're healthy, I want to be on that level now too, like I can't take this disease anymore. But of course Michael is like, no, this is like not a cure, this is a curse, I've killed people, like those guys on the ship, I killed them, obviously I didn't mean to, but it happened. He's like, the bloodlust that I have is insane and I don't know how to control it yet, and blah blah blah. Now Milo doesn't care and he just sees those things as like a bump in the road that he thinks Morbius can easily fix with time, and until then he wants the cure too, and they can face this together. He's very much like, I want to be on your level, I want to understand you, sort of in the way that like he feels that Martine understands him, right? Understands Michael in a way that Milo cannot, because they're both like scientists. But of course Michael refuses him, like, I'm not gonna give you this cure because it's not a cure, it's a curse, which breaks Milo's heart, you know? It kind of just like hurts him. And of course he brings up, he's like, have I ever denied you anything? I've always supported you, I've given you everything and anything that you've ever asked me for, and now you're denying me life, essentially, because the disease that they have is just getting worse and worse, and it's already a miracle that they've both lived as long as they have with this disease. So he's basically like, you're willing to have me die? You know what I mean? So he feels heartbroken and very betrayed. So Milo sees it as a betrayal of their friendship, whereas Morbius sees it as a monstrous fate that he is saving his best friend from. Which is understandable. So after, we would see Milo go back to his, penthouse apartment and grab the box of origami letters that he kept all those years when they were writing letters back and forth from Greece, and he'll tear them all up. And then we'll see him grab the picture frames of the two of them off the walls, off the tables, and throw them and smash them on the ground in anger. He is heartbroken, y'all. Okay? Like, that's the vibe I want. Like, I want him to be angry. And then, despite the warnings of Michael, Milo goes back to the lab secretly and takes the cure for himself, accidentally kills the nurse, but feels better and stronger than ever. And of course, when Morbius finds out about this, he doesn't see Milo as the same person as he once was. He sees him as twisted and, his morals are out of whack. And so when Morbius confronts him about this, Milo, yet again, will be like, we're the same now, like, let's just leave this city, let's run away together, let's do all the things that we talked about, like, we can live our lives now. And I'm sure you're a scientist, you're a doctor, like, you'll work out the kinks of this thing and you'll create something to where we don't have crazy bloodlust and, like, whatever. Basically prompting him to choose. It's like, choose your life here in this city with Martine, trying to make a cure for the cure, or live your life freely with me. That's, like, sort of the decision he wants Morbius to make. I want Milo to play it very desperate, like, basically just begging Morbius to come with him. Being like, we can leave this city together. We can go and live our lives now, and I want to live my life with you. So, like, a light confession. Like, it's a confession, but not a confession that Morbius would really pick up on. You know what I mean? Like, he wouldn't really pick up on that this is, like, a love confession and not just, like, a confession of friendship. Morbius will reject it and be like, I can't leave. I need to find a cure for this situation. And this will just piss off Milo that much more, where it's like, you chose wrong again kind of vibes. And then maybe he'll, like, kill a pedestrian right in front of Morbius just to spite him. You know what I'm saying? Like, just to prove, like, okay, well, F you then kind of vibes. Which will then prompt Morbius to be like, okay, he's a lost cause. He's lost his damn mind and there's, like, no saving him. So then, of course, he comes up with the plan to create a cure for the cure, which he needs Martine's help with, since they're doing this, like, under the table, shady boots vibes, since the police are after them. And Milo will be stalking Martine. And he will see, because in the movie they do, Martine and Michael do share a kiss. Like, they obviously both have feelings for each other throughout the whole movie, but, like, they never acknowledge it until they're in their shady boots lab creating a cure for the cure. They have a moment and they kiss. And Milo will see that kiss, and that will really set him off. Like, that will just be, like, the confirmation of, like, okay, you couldn't leave with me because you wanted her. He wants him to feel the same pain that he's feeling, so what does he do? He goes on a rampage. He starts killing random people, which we see in the movie, and then he'll kill their Dr. Daddy to draw him out, and then to taunt him, he will kill Martine. In Milo's mind, by killing off the people that he thinks Morbius cares about more, they will only leave the two of them, right? It's like, you will have nobody else to care about but me, right? That's like, he's losing his mind, basically. Like, morals out the window, he's losing his mind, he's pissed, he's upset, he's heartbroken, and so now he's just, like, not thinking straight. That's why he's killing random people. That's why he thinks, killing Dr. Daddy and then Martine, he will have no other choice but to leave the city with me, but to love me. Obviously, that's not a good plan, but now, their original showdown sucked. Okay, okay? The fighting was boring, and even the emotional aspect wasn't as strong as what it could have been. So here's how I would change it. So like, as they're fighting and Milo's winning, you know, he'd be yelling basically that like, I'm all you have now, sort of thing, like I'm all you have left, just like you're all I've ever had. So basically implying that like, we only have each other now. Then he'll go into like full emotional breakdown mode, and he'll tell him how he waited for each one of his letters, like, you know, every month when they were kids, and he patiently waited for the day that he could help Morbius the way Morbius had been trying to help cure them all this time. Like, he basically wanted to help as well. He didn't want the burden to fully be on Michael's back. And, you know, when that day finally came where he could help him financially, right, support his research and experiments and stuff, you know, and the day came that he could go to New York and live there alongside Morbius, and he thought it was going to be a totally different life, that they would see each other all the time, and it would be like how it was when they were in Greece. But obviously things did not go that way at all. And instead, even though he was closer to Michael now that they were both living in New York, he still barely saw him. You know, he saw him less and less and less. He saw him less and less unless Michael needed more funding for his research. That's the only time he'd pop by. Then Martine came along, and she was someone that could understand Michael the way that Milo never could, and it just infuriated him and it hurt him because, you know, they had the same kind of brain, they spoke the same sort of language, and it made Milo just feel left out, right? Milo could only watch from the sidelines, essentially, while he saw them grow closer. And he could only just feel their friendship and their bond slip away as they got older. What could he do? You know, except for hope that one day the plans they made to grow old together would still ultimately reign true, because they are the few against the many. That is like a quote that they say throughout the movie. So they started saying it as kids. Morbius first started, and he would tell Milo that the two of them were the original Spartans, the few against the many. So this confession of Milo's would bring tears to both of their eyes. So Morbius will finally understand Milo's true feelings and everything after that confession. And Morbius, now knowing the pain that he inflicted on his best friend, he feels guilty, you know, for almost robbing the years of their friendship. And, you know, his friend was so loyal to him this whole time and funded his research, and he just feels like he didn't hold up his end of the bargain. Okay, so here's the part where I feel like maybe I'm just like a sucker for tragic romance. Which I think is a bit of a problem, but I am kind of a sucker for tragic romance. Like, I don't always like a happy ending. So here's what I came up with for the ending instead. So after the whole confession, Morbius is finally understanding Milo's true feelings, and he understands his anger. He feels guilty about it, if anything. And maybe he doesn't feel the exact same way Milo does, but he does love Milo. After a moment of thought, Morbius tells Milo that he is sorry, but now they can both be released from their curse. And then he takes out one of the cure serums and stabs himself with it, which of course makes him drop to the ground and snaps Milo out of this villainy that he's kind of been in. And he runs to Morbius's side and he holds him in his arms. As he cries, he apologizes profusely, you know, because obviously he didn't want it to end up this way. This is not what he was expecting to happen at all. And he cries out and says, "I love you, don't leave me." And then with Morbius's last breath, okay, he whispers, "I love you too, Lucian," calling him by his real name, which he never does. He always calls him Milo. So it's kind of like that, you know, like that really stab you in the heart with that one, you know, before he closes his eyes and passes away. And so Milo will continue to cry over his lifeless body for a few more moments before he decides to take the second serum out of Morbius's clasped hand, and he injects himself with it. And with his last words, he will say, this is a little corny, so maybe I would change this, but he will say something along the lines of, "We are the original Spartans." Then he will intertwine his hand with Morbius's as he passes away peacefully. And then of course the police will close in on them. And then like end credit, yeah, we can see Martine's eyes open, very Bella Swan in Twilight style, because she is now a vampire. I don't really care about that girl, honestly, but but I will think, you know what? I like this ending too, because then Martine could like have a villain arc, right? It's like the love of her life or whatever is now dead, so now she gotta go on a rampage and be evil. But yeah, that's kind of like the ending I would go for. I don't know, what do you think? That's tragic romance, you know, unrequited love. He was only acknowledged in the very end. That is sort of how I would make this into a BL. Again, I just think it would have been better if Milo was in love with his bestie. Like, it would give more weight to the situation. Like, yeah, them being friends is like, okay. But I feel like we needed to see more of their friendship that we didn't get to see throughout the movie. And I feel like if they just made Milo into him, it would have made more sense. I think everything he did would have made more sense. I think the weight of them fighting afterwards and stuff would have made more sense. Because like I feel like everything was just not weighted enough. Obviously there's more things that probably could have been added to make it even more of a unrequited love story situation. Or you could just change it for them to actually become lovers in the end, though. That could also be a vibe. But yeah, I don't know. It felt like unrequited love the whole time I was watching the movie. Like, it felt like Milo. Like, I kind of understood Milo in the end. I was like, I get why he's pissed. He dedicated his life to you, and you're not really holding up your end of the deal. Yeah, so that is how I think Morbius could have been better if it was made into sort of a BL. It's not even really a BL, to be honest. It's just a one-sided love story where one of the characters would be into guys. Not into guys, into Morbius. Anyway, my point is this would have been better as a BL manhwa, and that's that. I have nothing else to say. Bye. What was that?